Throughout my life, I have enduring memories of the early spring. Going outside, feeling the weather start to warm up again, and smelling the blooming flowers and the new growth just brings back another baseball season for me. Whenever I go outside and have that feeling in the air, it feels like baseball. My memories from that time include being outside in the yard with my dad and my brother, playing wiffle ball with them and trying to hit my dad's curve, to eventually going to a real ball and a real bat. I played baseball from the time that I was 5 years old all the way through high school. I have so many memories of that time. Being able to laugh and joke with my teammates crying because they didn't do so well, being able to play under the lights, hard-fought team wins, and hearing my friends and family cheer for me as I hit the ball and ran the bases. Baseball is a huge part of the personal history of my life, and it's actually a huge part of the history of our nation too. You see, baseball is a very American game. It was born here in our young country in the 1870s, and it blossomed into a professional league in the early 1900s. Now, an important part of the history of any nation is its wars. And so today I'm going to outline how baseball has paralleled some wars and hard events and has helped us to get through those things and find some normalcy and some constancy through those trials. So, for example, in World War II, a famous baseball player named Joe DiMaggio played for the Yankees. Now, Joe DiMaggio is probably best known for his 56-game hitting streak and for marrying Marilyn Monroe. But he also served in the Army in World War II. Another baseball player, Ted Williams, who was a star for the Red Sox, sometimes called the greatest player who ever lived. Now, he had a tremendous batting eye, and he incorporated that as a pilot, both in World War II and in the Korean War. These baseball players put their lives on hold so that they could serve their country. Now, having these baseball players serve was also incentive for other people to go and join the Army. If their heroes on the field could do it, in the battlefield as well, then so could they. The Army knew this, and so they decided that they were going to incorporate their hand grenades in a way that would help them to incorporate their baseball skills on the battlefield. And so what they did is they made their hand grenades the same weight and roughly the same size as a baseball. So anybody who had experience throwing a baseball suddenly also had some experience throwing a hand grenade. That made them more effective soldiers. Now, the soldiers knew as well that their comrades would know about baseball. And so one of the ways that they would use to see if somebody was a traitor or an imposter from the enemy is they would ask them who won the last World Series. Chances are, if they weren't American, they had no idea. Now, a lot of us are familiar with the terrible events of 9/11. The terrorist attacks on our soil killed thousands of Americans and left us with a lot of questions about American security and safety. Because of these attacks, they were not able to hold large group events for a little while afterwards. People were worried about more attacks. They didn't know what was going to happen. And so it seemed to be best to not go after a giant group. When they finally did suit up, the Mets and the Braves played a game 10 days after the attacks. It was an emotional game. President George W. Bush threw out the first pitch. There were first responders who were honored beforehand as well as those that were lost. And all the players wore hats and jerseys with patches that said New York Police Department and New York Fire Department. In the 7th inning of that game, Mike Piazza hit a towering shot that gave the Mets the lead for good. They won that game, and it wasn't just a victory for New York, it was a victory for America. We needed to know that we could have hope, that we could have unity, that nobody was going to have us fear enough to lose our way of life. It was a victory for America that day. A similar event happened during the Boston Marathon bombings in 2013. Patriots Day is a huge day in Boston. It's usually accompanied by a Red Sox game and the marathon. Because of that, the games were postponed just a little bit, and when they came back, they had a pregame ceremony in which David Ortiz said that this is our city and that no one will dictate our freedoms. Boston finished last place the season before, but wearing their new jerseys that said Boston instead of Red Sox and this little patch that said Boston Strong, the Red Sox swept through first place all the way through the World Series championship that year. They won for their city. They helped them to feel unity and healing in a time of immense hardship. That is the power that baseball has. It can bring us to a place of unity. It can help us remember who we are. And it can help us to find some sense of normalcy and joy through amazing crisis and incredibly hard times. That's what baseball has done throughout history of America. And America has shaped the game that we love. And I know that as we move forward, it'll be the little things like our pastime that'll help us to keep our identity as Americans and truly get through anything. Thank you.